Okay, what if everything we thought we knew about nutrition was missing a huge piece of the puzzle? There's a new paper out that makes a really bold claim. We need to stop thinking of food as just fuel and start seeing it as information.
And this gets us right to a huge mystery that has scientists scratching their heads. You might have heard of this big NIH study. They gave two groups of people two different diets. One was ultra-processed, the other was all whole foods. But here's the kicker. They perfectly matched them for calories, protein, fat, carbs, even fiber. And the result? The people on the ultra-processed diet ate more and they gained weight every single time. So if it's not the calories or the macros, what on earth is going on?
Well, a puzzle like that is forcing a major shift in thinking. For, over 100 years, we've had this food as fuel model. We count the calories, we measure the grams of protein, fat, and carbs. But this new idea, food as information, it turns that on its head. It says food isn't just something we burn. It's actually a set of instructions, a signal that tells our body how to behave.
Now, to really grasp why this new idea is so important, we got to look at the cracks in our current model. I'm talking about all those common health problems that the food as fuel idea just can't seem to explain.
I mean, does this sound familiar to you? So many of us feel off. We're fighting through fatigue, we have brain fog, our moods are all over the place, or we get these weird inflammatory flare-ups. But then you go to the doctor, they run the standard tests, and everything comes back normal. The authors behind this new framework say, hey, maybe it's not that nothing's wrong, maybe we're just not measuring the right things.
So they point to 5 huge gaps in how we think about food. First, we get obsessed with the final nutrition label, but we totally ignore the food's history, like how it was processed. Second, we miss how food affects our body's own electrical communication. Third, we study single ingredients, but we have no idea how that weird cocktail of additives in a processed food might all interact. Fourth, our tests are just a snapshot in time, they don't tell us how resilient we are. And finally, we talk about energy in this vague way instead of actually measuring the real biophysics happening inside our cells.
Okay, so to fix all these problems, the paper introduces a whole new way to look at this, something called the Food Coherence System. And this is where we really shift from thinking about food chemistry to thinking about biophysics.
Right, here's the core idea. Your body is this incredibly complex network that's constantly communicating with itself using tiny electrical signals. Your heartbeat, your thoughts, it all depends on this network. The Food Coherence System suggests that the food you eat can either be a clean, clear signal that helps everything run smoothly, or it can be like static on the radio, creating noise that disrupts the whole system. All right, so this new framework comes with some new vocabulary. It's really all about getting the difference between that clean signal and all that disruptive biological noise. So the first big term is food coherence. Basically, a food with high coherence is one that sends clear instructions to your body. It helps all your systems stay stable and balanced. Think of it like a perfectly tuned orchestra, right? Everything is working in harmony. High coherence food helps your body stay in that state, which makes you way more resilient to stress.
And this is where you can see the difference it might make. A diet with higher food coherence would theoretically give you stable, efficient energy. Your inflammation levels would be low and steady. And when you get stressed, you'd bounce back fast. On the flip side, a low coherence diet, that could mean energy crashes, random spikes of inflammation, and a really slow, sluggish recovery. See? It's a whole different way of looking at things. It's dynamic.
And then we have the opposite concept, a bioelectric mutagen. Now, I know, that sounds super dramatic, so let's be really clear. This has nothing to do with changing your DNA. It's not that kind of mutagen. It's a term for a food or a diet that acts like that static we were talking about. It just adds noise to the system, messes up the clear signals, and makes it way harder for your body to keep itself in balance.
Okay, I know what you might be thinking. This is a cool idea, but is it actually science? Well, the authors say absolutely. This isn't just a metaphor, it's a real testable hypothesis. So how would you actually go about proving it?
Well, instead of just the old school tests like cholesterol, scientists can use a whole new toolkit of dynamic measurements. They can look at how fast your heart rate variability, or HRV, bounces back after you eat. They can track the ups and downs of inflammatory markers over time, not just one number. They can measure your cell's ability to handle stress and even check on the health of your mitochondria, the little power plants inside your cells.
And this brings us right back to that mystery we started with. The perfect experiment is to basically rerun that NIH study. You create two diets that are identical on paper, same calories, same macros, the whole deal, but one is ultra-processed and the other isn't. You give them to people, and then you use that modern toolkit to measure what's really happening. Does the ultra-processed diet create more biological noise? Does it mess with recovery, even when the nutrients are exactly the same? That's how you'd prove the theory.
So if this theory gets proven out by the research, it could completely change how we think about food, about health, and about what eating well even means.
I think this quote from the paper just nails it. The point isn't to throw out calories and macronutrients. The point is to add a whole new dimension that we've been missing. We could start looking at food not just for what it's made of, but for the instructions it gives our bodies, how it supports our internal harmony and our ability to bounce back from everything life throws at us.
And that leaves us with this really mind-bending final thought. I mean, just imagine a future where a food label doesn't just list calories, but it has a coherence score. Can you picture it? A world where we choose our food based on how well it helps our body's internal communication stay clear and resilient. It's a pretty radical idea, but it just might be the next great leap in the science of nutrition.